Hi, I'm Jude from headphone.org, and this is the 2022 CanJam Chicago preview. CanJam Chicago takes place June 18th and 19th, 2022 at the Marriott Marquis Chicago in downtown Chicago. It's been 12 years since we last had a CanJam in Chicago back in 2010, back when CanJams were lead organized by local community members. Anyway, it's great to be CanJamming again, great to bring it back to Chicago, and there will be a lot to hear and see at the show, including many new products being launched there. This year's CanJam Chicago would not be possible without our CanJam Chicago sponsors, so we'd like to thank Headphones.com, Cardas Audio, Headphone Guru, Secrets of Home Theater and High Fidelity, and Music Tech. Now, let's jump right into the preview with just a small sampling of the aisles and aisles of audio gear for you to discover at CanJam Chicago, June 18th and 19th. The transition from the more traditional hi-fi world into the world of headphone audio can be tough for an audio company rooted for decades in that more traditional loudspeaker-driving audio world. To successfully break into our world means going all in, diving deep into our community, a community that's discerning, often nerdy, and, well, younger than the traditional hi-fi community. It's been done before. Chord Electronics is among the most notable examples. Shit Audio was started by two longtime veterans of the traditional two-channel audio world. And I have no doubt that another company that has for years been laying the foundation for a successful move into our world is the company that makes this imposing stack right here. DCS Audio, certainly one of the most storied, revered, high-end audio manufacturers of the past few decades. This stack is called the DCS Audio Lina system, and it's a three-piece system purpose-built for headphone listeners. The DCS Lina system consists of a dedicated network DAC, master clock, and headphone amplifier, and each of these can be acquired separately. The DCS Lina system is unquestionably one of the best systems I've ever had the pleasure of using, and it will be at CanJam Chicago in the DCS room in Water Tower B. You have to hear it. Let's start with the heart of the system and what DCS is known for, the DAC. The Lina Network DAC supports high-res streaming from Roon, Tidal, Qobuz, Spotify, Deezer, AirPlay, and more. With over 2,000 individual components on its circuit boards, the DCS Lina Network DAC is built around DCS's legendary Ring DAC technology and digital processing platform. In addition to decoding everything I would possibly feed to it, it has technology very specific to us, to headphone audiophiles. One of them is something called DCS Expanse Technology, which is a headphone processing platform that offers an enhanced version of crossfeed. I've said many times before, I'm a big fan of crossfeed. It's a very important feature for me. So I love with Lina that it's happening at the DAC level, and as such, it enables any headphone amp I use with it with this advanced crossfeed. Now with it, there's a standard crossfeed setting and two other expanse crossfeed settings that are more advanced, preserving reverberation in a recording, which standard crossfeed circuits can often blunt. Anyway, it's a beautiful sounding DAC, period, and you have to make sure to ask for a demo of these features at the show. Now the second component in the stack is the DCS Lina Master Clock. The Lina Master Clock uses oven-controlled dual crystal oscillators to deliver a precise and stable clocking reference. In other words, it allows the Lina Network DAC to be locked to a master reference signal, minimizing jitter and other irregularities. Its purpose? To enhance all aspects of sound for a more immersive listening experience. Having read reviews of DCS master clocks over the years, I always wondered what having one in the system meant, especially because most DCS DAC owners end up adding a DCS master clock to their systems at some point. So finally, at CanJam Singapore a couple of months ago, I was able to do a master clock demo with the DCS Bartok, switching a DCS Rossini master clock in and out, and the difference was shocking in that system. I stayed in the DCS room for a while to watch others who walked in do the same demo and end up with the same startled look I had. And finally, this is the DCS Lina headphone amplifier. This amp took years of development. Having immersed themselves in our community, DCS saw that headfires will often want to drive a wide range of earphones and headphones with their amps. So essentially, DCS wanted this amp to be able to drive a lot of voltage into high impedance headphones, a lot of current into low impedance ones, and to also drive well those headphones that simultaneously need lots of voltage and lots of current. They went with a Class A/B stage with a novel error correction technique. Simply put, here's what this amp has meant to me so far. I've been able to drive just about anything. Today, for example, I was listening to the Sony IE-RM9 and the Fir Audio Monarch Mark II IEMs from the Lina amp in its low gain mode. And in addition to it being quiet in terms of self-noise, it was one of the best sounding amps I've used with either of these IEMs. I was also listening to the challenging hi-fi man Susvara with the Lina amp in its high gain mode, and again, it is unquestionably one of the best amps I've heard with the Susvara, definitely the best solid-state headphone amp I've heard with the Susvara so far. Being able to bounce between my IERM9 and other IEMs and the Susvara and pretty much any other non-electrostatic high-end headphones, and to do it all with such drive and beauty. This is such a very special system. Now, the way DCS does things requires a lot of space, and for the Lina stack, they recognized that many headfires don't have a lot of desk real estate to spare for typically DCS-sized gear, so they designed these components so that they can be stacked to minimize the required desk space. I love the look of this skyscraper DCS Lina system, and I've mostly been using it at home on my main desk there, which is actually pretty tiny. Anyway, again, this is a very formidable, beautiful sounding system, a very special setup. I'll be talking about the DCS Lina system in more detail later. In the meantime, move the DCS Lina system to the top of your audition list at CanJam Chicago. At CanJam SoCal last year, Audeze's exhibit was probably the busiest one there, with the launch of their flagship planar magnetic Audeze LCD5, as well as the electrostatic Audeze Carbon. I have a feeling we'll see a repeat of that this year at CanJam Chicago, not just for the Audeze LCD5 and Carbon, but also for this just-announced headphone, their first purpose-built pro audio headphone, the new Audeze MM-500. The funny thing is that specifically up at Audeze's premium price points, Audeze may have the best penetration into the pro audio over-ear market already. Their Audeze LCD-X is a very popular model, of course in our audiophile world, but also increasingly in pro audio. With so little known about this new Audeze MM-500, I've seen speculation online that perhaps it's just a rebranded Audeze LCD-X. I was wondering the same thing. I'll get back to that in a minute. Now, the MM in the Audeze MM-500's name stands for Manny Marroquin, whom some of you who pay attention to the pro audio scene may already know. Manny is a mixing engineer who's won 11 Grammys, an absolute giant in his field. And you know what else he is now? Manny Marroquin is now also Audeze's head of professional products. The MM-500 is Manny's first headphone, and he and Audeze have gone beast mode on these. I think for many, these will be the favorite in Audeze's lineup, especially when it comes to value for the price. Going back and forth with the MM-500 between two of my other favorite Audezes, the latest generation LCD-X and the flagship LCD-5, I'd say the MM-500 definitely has more in common sonically, not to mention physically, design-wise, with the flagship Audeze LCD-5. The MM-500 actually reminds me a lot of the Audeze LCD-5, but it's slightly smoother in the treble to my ears, and also a bit richer in the bass and mids. The LCD-5, which I think is one of the most resolving non-electrostatic headphones ever made, is still the more resolving of the two, but don't misunderstand me, the MM-500 is still very resolving. In fact, compared to the Audeze LCD-X, the MM-500 out-resolves it. Compared to the X, the MM-500 is simply cleaner through the bass and mids, a little leaner and faster through there too, and its treble in comparison is like taking an already clean window and opening it up to fresh air. Again, the MM-500 has more in common to my ears with the LCD-5 than the LCD-X, and while the MM-500 gives up some resolution to the LCD-5 as most any headphone would, I actually prefer the MM-500's tonal balance a little bit over the flagship LCD-5. So in response to the speculation about whether or not it's a rebadged LCD-X, I can say unequivocally it is not, and the MM-500 will be worth getting in line for to hear at CanJam Chicago.
Making its US show debut at CanJam Chicago 2022 is this, ZMF's new co-flagship, the Atrium. Launched just a few short months ago, the Atrium is the first of a new generation of ZMF headphones to employ their patent-pending ADS, or Atrium Damping System, for improved resonance control, which, in the case of the Atrium, results in improved staging and finer control of its overall frequency response. As far as sound quality, I won't completely spoil your upcoming audition right here and now, except to say that the Atrium is a superb combination of balanced tonality, open and natural staging, vivid imaging, and an addictive analog sound throughout. All of that has made the Atrium, for me, one of the most enjoyable headphones that I've heard in quite some time. And ordinarily, to anyone looking for a sonically rich dynamic driver headphone, I'd have no reservations about recommending the Atrium to them, if it weren't for this. This is ZMF's new Auteur Classic. It's an ADS-equipped Auteur with an improved driver to boot, and it succeeds the original and now discontinued Auteur. It will be making its debut at CanJam Chicago 2022, and to my ears, it sounds absolutely amazing. Tonally, it's nearly identical to the original Auteur. Nearly. It's got the same mid-bass, the same wonderful vocal presence, and the same sparkling highs of the original Auteur, but it offers better low-end extension and digs deeper. Technically, it sounds cleaner and less congested, which leads me to believe that it will ultimately measure out to have better distortion characteristics over that of the original Auteur. And of course, spatially, it's immense. The soundstage has been significantly expanded along all axes, and imaging is vastly improved as instruments have been given better focus with more space between them. The new Atrium damping system is the real deal. So, do I think that original Auteur owners, like myself, should upgrade to the new Auteur Classic? Yes. Speaking for myself, unequivocally and without qualifications, yes. That said, I can surmise that you now have a few questions in mind. I know I did. Luckily, I had a chance to chat with Zach Maribot the other day, and I was able to ask him some of these questions. How much is the new Auteur Classic going to cost? Inexplicably, Zach has decided to price the new Auteur Classic at only $14.99. That's $100 less than the original Auteur that it replaces. When will the Auteur Classic be available? We don't have an exact date at this time, but Zach has confirmed that the Auteur Classic is scheduled for a full release sometime in July. However, as an exclusive show special for CanJam Chicago attendees, Zach has prepared a limited number of early bird units, only a few dozen or so, that can be purchased at the show. So if you want to jump the line entirely and walk away with an Auteur Classic before it's even been officially released, CanJam Chicago is where you'll want to be. And finally, can an original Auteur be converted to an Auteur Classic? Because some of us already have the original Auteur, some of which are limited editions with wood options that may not be available again for quite some time, if ever, this is a valid concern. And the answer to that question is yes. Existing Auteurs can be converted into Auteur Classics. Zach wasn't able to give me a final price on how much such a conversion would cost, but I suspect that he'll have an answer for us all by the time of the show. Come hear the new Atrium, the even newer Auteur Classic, and the rest of ZMF's lineup at CanJam Chicago 2022.
It's been several years since my first encounter with IEM maker QDC at CanJam New York, but I can still recall the two models in their lineup that stood out from the rest of the pack. The first was their flagship at the time, the Anoli VX, a lovely IEM with 3 switches that could be used to adjust its neutral-ish, highly resolving reference tuning. I walked away from the exhibit thinking about how incredible their demo was, but as I mentioned a moment ago, that wasn't the only piece to leave a long-lasting impression. The second in-ear was one which, unlike the Anoli VX, I hadn't seen discussed on the forums at any point before the show, but its sound left such an impact on me that I still recall it fondly some years on. It was an 8 balanced armature IEM that possessed a sound signature tuned with studio professionals in mind, and to this day still remains one of my favorite experiences from QDC. Well, QDC recently announced a new Octadriver IEM, which they say is an upgrade to their classic, more hi-fi focused 8SH, which was a sibling to the IEM I first heard many moons ago. And of course, I leapt at the chance to give them a listen. Say hello to the QDC Tiger. Unlike the full balanced armature 8SH, the Tiger is a hybrid design with 6 balanced armature drivers and 2 electrostatic drivers. It features the same 4-way crossover and 4-way sound channel design found in QDC's current flagship, the Anoli V14, and QDC claims that the Tiger has a frequency response that reaches all the way up to 70 kHz. Now on paper that's certainly impressive, but how does it sound? I may have only had a short couple weeks with the Tiger, but it and I connected straight away. So much so, in fact, that the more I got to know it, the more I could see this becoming a contender for my list of desert island in-ears. You know the phrase, right? When you can only choose one headphone to join you on a private island? Well, while it's too early to say for certain, I have the distinct impression that QDC's latest creation will be in with a shot. The Tiger features what is to my eyes a beautifully inspired design. Its housing is built from what QDC calls a Thai gold color titanium alloy, with a tiger stripe pattern slashed across a hollow faceplate to reveal a second rose gold faceplate lurking within. The end result is a striking 3D effect. It's incredibly comfortable for a universal, in fact, probably the single most comfortable IEM I've auditioned in recent memory, thanks in part to its lightweight, excellent ergonomics, and low memory cable. Speaking of that cable, it comes with multiple terminations that are swappable via QDC's interchangeable connector system. 2022 is the year of the Tiger, and I cannot think of a better time for QDC to uncage this incredible beast. The QDC Tiger will be descending upon CanJam Chicago this weekend, so before you prowl the show floor, be sure to gear up and prepare to take it head-on at the Music Tech exhibit.
Years ago, I visited Hifiman founder Fang Bian's home in New York. Now, Fang hasn't lived in New York in many years, so this was a long time ago. Anyway, I visited Fang at his home, and it looked like the lair of a mad audio scientist. Almost every inch of his home was overflowing with circuit boards in various states of assembly. There were experimental headphone designs he'd hand-assembled, and huge Bowers & Wilkins loudspeakers to listen to that took up what little square footage there was that was not occupied by what was clearly an audio laboratory that he just happened to live in. I have countless stories I could tell you about Fang, and I wish I had the time to tell you more right now. But many, if not most of those stories would point to one thing. Fang Bian lives and breathes audio, and he's a fanatical, never-ending wellspring of audio ideas. And practicality never seems to limit him in his pursuit of great sound. I also remember when Fang told me he was working on the first hi-fi quality portable audio player, the Hifiman HM801, which, though rough-hewn by today's standards, kicked off the high-end portable digital audio player market that has evolved to where it is today. In the earliest days, Fang would tell me about his plans for affordable planar magnetic headphones with high-end performance. As we all know, he's been making those kinds of headphones for years. Still another impractical idea Fang wanted to pursue was to develop his own R2R DAC chip. Like many in the audiophile world, Fang has always preferred the sound of R2R DACs. Now, virtually all the DACs we use today are a type called Delta Sigma, which long ago replaced R2R type DACs. If you don't know what R2R or Delta Sigma DACs are, you're going to have to Google both, as we don't have time to dive into those topics in this preview video. I will say that R2R DAC enthusiasts are often passionate about them, strongly preferring the character, the sound of R2R DACs. And indeed, some of the best DACs I've heard have been of the R2R type. So at CanJam Chicago, make sure to listen to Hifiman's new EF-400 desktop R2R DAC amp combo. The EF-400's DAC section is based on the Himalaya R2R DAC architecture, and it lets you quickly switch between non-oversampling and oversampling modes and low and high gain modes. The amplifier section is a fully balanced, fully differential circuit, and I think maximum output is up to 4.4 watts per channel with up to 10.7 volts RMS into 36 ohms with less than 1% THD at that level. So far, I've mostly been using the EF-400 to drive the flagship planar magnetic Hifiman Susvara, considered by many to be the best non-electrostatic headphone ever made, and the EF-400 drives the Susvara beautifully. I've also been using the EF-400 with the new, very reasonably priced Hifiman Edition XS planar magnetic headphones, and I can even use it with my favorite IEMs in the EF-400's low gain mode. Now, unfortunately, due to current international travel restrictions, I don't think Fang Bian will be at CanJam Chicago personally. But at CanJam, you will be able to hear the EF-400 and the entire Hifiman lineup. Make sure to listen to their headphones at all price points. These are products that come from the mind of perhaps the single most dedicated, passionate audio company founder I've ever known.
Seminars are a CanJam staple, and at CanJam Chicago this year, there will be a total of 7 seminar sessions taking place during the show. None of them are repeated and seating is limited, so plan your schedule accordingly to not miss the seminars you want to see. The seminars will take place in the Water Tower A room just down the hall from the main exhibit space. Our seminar schedule kicks off on Saturday, June 18th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. with Hearing Health 101, presented by Andrew Bellavia, the Director of Market Development and Knowles' Hearing Health Tech Division. The World Health Organization estimates that over 50% of people between the ages of 12 and 35 listen to music over their personal audio devices at volumes that pose a risk to their hearing. But it doesn't have to be so. Thanks to modern audio tech, it is possible to have your cake and eat it too. Join Andrew Bellavia as he shares strategies for listening to music in a safe way without sacrificing enjoyment or quality. He will also describe how protecting your hearing in other situations can increase the time available for safely listening to music, and how to improve perceived music quality if you already have some hearing loss. From noon to 1 p.m., join HeadAmp's Micaiah Shanae for Headphones 101. Simple in theory, headphones can be extraordinarily complicated electroacoustic devices. Join Micaiah for a clear overview of various driver designs and learn about basic acoustics, frequency response, sensitivity, and more. Most importantly, discover how to choose the headphones that best suit your needs. Our third Saturday seminar is Amplification 101 from 2 to 3 p.m. and will be presented by Jeff Wells, the founder and lead engineer designer at Wells Audio. Which amp will best drive your headphones of choice? Should you opt for tubes or solid state? Learn the basics of amplification, including gain, topology, and classification. Understand how power output, voltage, current, distortion, and other details will factor into your decisions during Amplification 101. On Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m., Michael Goodman, the founder and lead engineer designer at CEntrance, will be presenting Digital Audio 101. Join Michael for a clear and concise introduction to digital audio, as well as the DACs needed to enjoy it. Learn about some of the most popular DAC topologies in use today, like Delta Sigma and R2R, clocks, filters, jitter, ringing, whether DAC chips really do have a house sound, and much more. Closing out our Saturday seminars, Rob Watts, digital design consultant perhaps best known in our community for his work at Chord Electronics. Rob Watts will be presenting Digital Audio 201 from 4 to 5 p.m. Are you ready to take a deeper dive into high-fidelity digital audio? Join Rob for an hour-long insight into how digital interpolation filters work. This seminar will cover understanding the importance of interpolation filtering and transients, and realizing just how much time domain performance can dictate fidelity and realism. If you are currently pursuing an endgame rig, this is one seminar you won't want to miss. On Sunday, June 19th from 11 a.m. to noon, Rob Watts returns for a seminar simply titled Chord Electronics' Mojo 2. 7 years after the debut of its predecessor, Chord's long-awaited Mojo 2 portable DAC amp is finally here. Come join Rob for a fascinating recounting of its development over the years, and a comprehensive overview of the Mojo 2's groundbreaking features, including UHD DSP, enhanced menu options featuring an additional control sphere for crossfeed mute and lock settings, intelligent FPGA-based battery management and charging, and of course, more taps. And finally, on Sunday from noon to 1 p.m., join Christina Downey, acoustic engineer with Knowles Corporation, and Jerry Harvey, founder and sound engineer at JH Audio, for a presentation titled The Role of Treble Extension in Improving Performance of In-Ear Monitors. While earlier listening studies concentrated on the spectrum below 10 kHz, a significant portion of recorded music occurs as high as 20 kHz. Knowles conducted a new study on preference response curves with a focus on treble performance. Christina Downey, acoustic engineer by day and sound engineer by night, will share what was learned about the significance of treble response on listener preference. Then, Jerry Harvey, well-known pioneer in the development of IEMs, will reveal how he raised treble performance to the next level in the new Sharona, the first ever to employ Knowles' new balanced armature supertweeter. Again, these seminars are taking place June 18th and 19th in the Water Tower A Room, just down the hall from the main exhibit space in the Great Lakes Ballroom. Each of these incredible talks and presentations will be happening only once, so be sure to grab a seat before it becomes standing room only.
If you're in the market for a new or replacement headphone cable, then be sure to stop by Cardas Audio's interactive and ear-opening exhibit at CanJam Chicago 2022. They'll be featuring headphone cables from their flagship level clear line, a favorite of many enthusiasts since they were first launched in 2009, to their versatile clear light line, which can be used as both a headphone or IEM cable, and is in fact the standard cable included with Cardas' own ear speaker IEMs, to their entry-level Parsec line, an easily accessible way to experience much of the performance offered by their premium lines. I highly encourage you to bring your own headphones and portable sources to Cardas' exhibit so that their cables are the only variable component that are hot swapped for comparative auditions. But even if you can't, they'll have a selection of popular headphones on hand, as well as a world-class desktop rig featuring gear from Air Acoustics and Woo Audio. While you're there, be sure to give their ear speaker IEMs an audition, particularly their EM5813 model. First developed over a decade ago, Cardas ear speakers feature custom dynamic drivers designed to mimic the tympanic and cochlear characteristics of the human hearing system. It is this ear mirror technology that has earned Cardas' ear speakers a reputation for effortless detail and musicality while significantly reducing listening fatigue and discomfort. Speaking of reducing listening fatigue, if you want to take a break during the show, feel free to stop by Cardas' exhibit for some fine conversation about audio and music in general. Over the years, I've found that spending some time with Cardas' bright and cheerful crew has consistently been one of the brightest spots of any CanJam for me. Stop by their exhibit to see why.
I'm very excited that these two storied brands will be exhibiting together at CanJam Chicago, two companies that have been of tremendous importance in the audiophile journeys of many in our community, myself included. I'm talking about Etymotic and Westone Audio. Now, why are they exhibiting together? Because both are now owned by Lucid Audio. What I love about Lucid Audio's approach is that the spirit and individuality of each of these companies remains alive. Their designs, their voicings. Etymotic is still very much Etymotic, and Westone Audio is still very much Westone Audio. Actually, there is one thing that changed with Etymotic under Lucid, something I thought would never happen but did, and in my opinion, it's all for the better. I'm talking about the use of multi-driver designs. Etymotic's ER4 was my first high-end in-ear monitor many years ago, and the ER4 stands to this day as a popular line, having evolved some over the years. But the ER4 is and always was a single-driver design. In fact, all of Etymotic's IEMs, whether balanced armature or dynamic, were single-driver designs. And Etymotic is very good at extracting wonderful sound out of a single driver per side. But it's with this one, this is the Etymotic Evo, that they finally went multi-driver. The Etymotic Evo is a 3-balanced armature design with a 2-way crossover. The Evo uses dual balanced armature low-frequency drivers and a single mid-range treble BA driver. And here's how I'd describe the Evo from the perspective of a longtime Etymotic ER4 user. It may have 3 times the driver count, but the Evo is still very much an Etymotic, only with deeper, richer bass and overall more resolution than any Etymotic I've heard before it. For those of you who haven't heard Etymotics before, I think most would perceive the Evo as more neutral, flatter, and with just enough energy in the bass to elevate it out of leanness. The Etymotic Evo would be a solid monitor in my opinion, and a wonderful general use audiophile earphone too. Make sure to hear the Evo, and also to hear the classic Etymotic ER4 line of earphones at CanJam Chicago. Westone Audio will be showing their entire lineup, but I expect they'll be emphasizing their new Mach lineup, which was just launched. There are 8 models in this new Westone Audio Mach family, and I only had a chance to briefly audition them at Expono last April, paying particular attention to the Mach 60. I believe the Mach line has voicings inspired by their numeric ES counterparts. So for example, this is the Westone Audio ES60 custom IEM here, and the Mach 60's voicing is, I believe, inspired by the custom ES60. Prior to this, Westone Audio's custom models didn't necessarily have any universal fit counterparts. Now they do. Of all of Westone Audio's custom IEMs I've heard, the ES60 has been my favorite. So if I had to recommend one of the 8 Westone Audio Mach models to audition first, I'd start with the Westone Audio Mach 60. If you have the time though, you'll probably want to compare them all, which is something I'll also try to do at CanJam Chicago at Lucid Audio's exhibit.
HeadAmp has become one of the staples at CanJam events in the US, and their exhibit is always a treasure trove of products from a wide assortment of brands. Their lineup often includes gear from Astel & Kern, Focal, iBasso, iFi Audio, Raw Requisite, Stax, and numerous other brands, including their family of HeadAmp amplifiers. But there's one product they'll be showcasing at CanJam Chicago this year that I think headfires may have been sleeping on, the Bricasti M3. The Bricasti M3 is a dual mono DAC that supports PCM up to 24.384 and DSD up to 256, each with their own fully differential conversion channel. On the rear, you'll have USB, coaxial, optical, and AES inputs, alongside balanced XLR and single-ended RCA outputs, and the RCAs are separately buffered so you can run both outputs at the same time, a feature that is always a welcome addition in my home office, allowing me to connect multiple amplifiers and active monitors at once. If you opt for Bricasti's optional network player card, which we have here, you'll have the ability to connect the M3 to your home network via a standard RJ45 cable. Around the front, you'll find several buttons which change the function of the M3's multipurpose control dial. Pressing input allows you to cycle through each of the M3's digital inputs, level will allow you to adjust the volume, and so on. This particular M3 has the optional headphone amplifier installed, so you'll also find balanced 4-pin XLR and single-ended 1/4-inch headphone outputs on the front. Speaking of those front outputs, the Bricasti M3 serves wonderfully as a DAC amp for headphone users. It drives my most demanding full-size headphones without breaking a sweat, while delivering a noise-free listening experience with my sensitive IEMs. The system adds a touch of warmth to the sound, but when I say a touch, I mean a light touch, a touch that was welcomed by my Sennheiser HD800 and Audio-Technica ATH-ADX 5000. The added warmth didn't restrict either headphone's resolving capabilities, an area in which both excel. Bricasti's products are used by a number of studio professionals, and given what I've heard here, it's easy to see why. Now, earlier I mentioned that this particular M3 has Bricasti's optional network player installed, and as someone who pretty much exclusively uses the USB input on my devices, I absolutely had to try it out. Setup was straightforward, easier than I anticipated in fact, with little more required than connecting the M3 to the network via an Ethernet cable and selecting the M3 in Roon's audio settings. Then, using Roon Remote on my phone, I can freely control the M3's playback from anywhere. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that the Bricasti M3 is pretty much a workhorse that sounds incredible and can do pretty much all of the heavy lifting. Remember that detail about its separately buffered outputs? It's so useful that HeadAmp has utilized the M3 as a single source to feed a number of different amplifiers at their exhibit, and they'll likely be doing the same again at CanJam Chicago. When you get to HeadAmp's exhibit, be sure to sit down and ask for a demo of the M3. You'll be glad you did. Of course, the Bricasti M3 won't be the only thing worth sampling at HeadAmp's CanJam Chicago exhibit. They're going to have their iconic Blue Hawaii SE electrostatic amplifier, and you'll be able to experience it with some of the world's best electrostatic headphones from Stax, Audeze, and Dan Clark Audio. Speaking of DCA, HeadAmp will be exhibiting alongside Dan Clark Audio in both the main exhibit hall and the Shed A room, so be sure to visit both locations to see everything HeadAmp will have to offer. As I mentioned just moments ago, Dan Clark Audio will be joining us at CanJam Chicago this year, and they're co-exhibiting with HeadAmp in both the main exhibit hall and the Shed A room. When you stop by to check out Dan Clark Audio's full family of headphones, there is one that I feel you absolutely should not miss, the Dan Clark Audio Voce. The Voce is DCA's first and only electrostatic headphone, and since you'll be able to audition it on several electrostatic amps, including the HeadAmp Blue Hawaii Special Edition, CanJam Chicago will be the perfect spot to run the Voce through its paces. While it may share styling cues with some of Dan Clark Audio's other headphones, the Voce is in a class all its own. Inside of the Voce's all-metal housing, you'll find gigantic 88mm drivers with a diaphragm measuring in at only 2.4 microns thick. It's these very drivers that develop deep bass extension, and not just by comparison with other electrostatic headphones. High treble extension, and they're so versatile and flexible that you'll no doubt want to see how the Voce measures up on as many different amps as you can. Whether you're a hardened electrostatic fan or looking to experience your first electrostatic headphones, DCA's Voce should absolutely be on your CanJam Chicago audition list. Now, of course, most of us associate the Dan Clark Audio name with their family of planar magnetic headphones, and they will all be in attendance at CanJam, including this, the Dan Clark Audio Stealth. The Stealth is the first headphone to feature DCA's Acoustic Metamaterial Tuning System, or AMTS. The AMTS is a small device that sits between the transducer and your ear, and with it, Dan and his team can shape a headphone's frequency response to hit their ideal target. We sat down with founder, lead engineer, and designer Dan Clark last fall to discuss the Stealth's development and its all-new design, and Dan gave us a detailed breakdown of everything the team is able to do with the AMTS. So be sure to check that out before you stop by their exhibit. The Stealth is one of those unicorn headphones that sounds open but is in fact a closed-back design. There's a sense of air and spaciousness that's rarely seen in a closed-back headphone, and it makes it so easy to forget that I'm not listening to an open pair. The Stealth sound signature is natural and smooth, and it's one that's likely to click with many headfires. Like the Voce, I recommend trying the Stealth on a variety of amps at Dan Clark Audio's exhibit, because like its electrostatic cousin, the Stealth responds well to a wide range of amplifiers. Be sure not to miss the Voce, Stealth, and the rest of the Dan Clark Audio lineup.
Marcel Schoenen and Amin Karimpour of Visioneers have released some of the most impressive IEMs in the past several years, from their still popular and now classic Visioneers VE8, the Erlkönig, which I know I'm not pronouncing right, and many others. Their Visioneers Elysium was one of the first IEMs to integrate Sonion's EST electrostatic drivers seamlessly. I think the Elysium might still be the best implementation of EST I've heard, and one of the best IEMs I've heard in the last few years. And Visioneers engineer Oliver Marino has been among my favorite people to talk to about IEM engineering and audio measurements when we meet at shows, and we even had some video calls during the lockdowns. Now at CanJam Chicago, you'll be able to find Visioneers at two exhibits, Bloom Audio and Music Tech, so make sure to hear their two latest models, the Visioneers EXT and the Visioneers Phonics. The EXT is Visioneers' latest electrostatic-equipped IEM, but its configuration is very unique. It has a 9.2mm dynamic driver for bass, a 6mm dynamic driver for the mids, and 4 electrostatic drivers for the highs. The challenge of tuning such different types of drivers to work together without any detectable break in timbre is immense, but the EXT is, to my ears, seamless in this regard. The EXT's signature is big, powerful driving with bass that's emphasized but clean, like a beautifully engineered subwoofer and crossover that's been tuned up some over neutral for audiophile bass enthusiasts. And as they did with the Elysium, they've used the electrostatic tweeters to give beautiful extension and air up top. Again, the integration of the dynamic and electrostatic drivers is beautifully executed. Also, if how an IEM looks is important to you, the Visioneers EXT is, in my opinion, one of the best looking, most striking IEMs I've ever seen. The machined metal purple faceplate with the precise CNC nested X-shaped cuts exposing the functional aluminum mesh underneath, it's just gorgeous. The Visioneers Phonics is a descendant of Visioneers Erlkönig, built around an improved version of the Erlkönig's driver configuration. Among the improvements Visioneers was shooting for with the Phonics was more openness and air in the higher frequencies. I'm going from memory and notes, but I feel confident they've done just that. The Phonics is an all-balanced armature 13-driver design with 4 BAs for the lows, 4 for the mids, 4 BAs for the mid-highs, and a new super tweeter. The Phonics' tuning is rich, not quite as bass-rich, not quite as low-bass slamming as the EXT to me, but the Phonics has a full-bodiedness. Is that even a word? It is now. It is now. The Phonics has a full-bodiedness through the mid-range that's very engaging. And even with the warmth in the mids, there's ample shimmer and air too, which I'll bet is due to the new super tweeter. I'll have to listen to the Elysium again, but for my tastes, the Phonics might be my favorite Visioneers IEM to date. And again, by the way, if you care about how your IEMs look, the Phonics is also gorgeous, with a completely different aesthetic from the EXT. The Phonics has a carbon fiber main body machined from a block of aerospace-grade carbon fiber and a golden or matte black carrier faceplate with domed sapphire glass through which there's a dark red chrome layer with a golden Phonics logo. Anyway, if you're shopping for top-tier IEMs, or even if you're just curious about what is being done at the high end of IEMs today, make sure to stop by the Bloom Audio and the Music Tech exhibits at CanJam Chicago for the EXT, the Phonics, and the rest of Visioneers IEMs.
ELETEC, one of today's most popular manufacturers of bespoke IEM cables, will be represented by their US dealer Bloom Audio at CanJam Chicago 2022. They'll have several of their greatest hits available for audition, beginning with this. ELETEC's Iliad IEM cable from their premium Parnassus line. The Iliad is a 4-core cable featuring 24-gauge wire comprised of silver, palladium-plated silver, and a gold-silver alloy. I have to say, the Iliad is pretty impressive, with outstanding detailed characteristics, but without sacrificing too much warmth or weight. It also exhibits noticeably less harshness and sibilance compared to my previous reference silver cable, which, coincidentally, also featured palladium-plated silver wire. That said, while I can certainly appreciate a luxurious cable laden with precious metals, my personal preferences lean heavily towards solidly built, well-shielded, no-nonsense copper cables. Which brings us to ELETEC's Socrates IEM cable, from their mid-range School of Athens line. Like the Iliad, the Socrates is also a 4-core cable featuring 24-gauge wire, but this time is comprised entirely of 7N OCC copper. That's 99.99999% pure copper. Sound-wise, the Socrates is exactly what I expected from a top-tier copper cable. Balanced so as to play well with all genres, with just a hint of warmth for a very natural sound and superior detail without excessive brightness. Both the Iliad and the Socrates are available in various source terminations, including 2.5mm balanced, 4.4mm balanced, and of course 3.5mm single-ended. IEM terminations include 2-pin, MMCX, the shrouded 2-pin used by older UE and current QDC models, Fidier's specialized 2-pin, and even JH Audio's 4-pin barrel connector, albeit without the bass attenuators. But the ELETEC cable that I'm most enamored with at the moment is this, the Inferno, ELETEC's first cable for full-size headphones. Part of their new Dante series, the Inferno features a dual-core design employing 2 differently sized strands of high-purity copper and 2 layers of shielding for superior EMF noise rejection. It's available in every termination commonly used today, both at the source end and the headphone end, and its standard length is a very optimal 1.5 meters, though custom lengths are available upon request. And unlike some of the more delicate cables that I've used over the years, the Inferno is built quite tough. Durable enough to withstand daily wear, the occasional office chaircaster, and even cats. One cat in particular. As for presentation, I found the Inferno to be very well balanced with a natural tonality, being neither dark nor bright. Transparency was excellent, offering me exceptional detail retrieval, particularly in the vocal range. All of these ELETEC models and much more await us at Bloom Audio's exhibit.
Headfires are constantly on the go, and when we're out and about, many of us, myself included, like to have a portable setup that can drive practically any headphone with ease. For some of us, that means carrying around a fully configured portable rig. Personally, I tend to fall into the camp looking for a balance between convenience and sound quality, an all-in-one type device that can handle all of my needs. Luckily, one such device will be making an appearance at Music Tech's exhibit this year, and I highly recommend that anyone looking for a new flagship class DAP stop by to audition this, the Cayin N8ii DAP. The N8ii is the second generation player in Cayin's N8 family, and it takes the 2 portion of its name almost literally, with a dual roam BD34301 EKV DAC architecture, dual amplification modes, dual voltage output modes, and Cayin's dual timbre feature. The N8ii supports PCM up to 32768 and DSD up to 512 from each of its 3 dedicated outputs. With USB input and output, SPDIF, Bluetooth 5.0 with LDAC, AAC, UAT, and SBC, a Snapdragon 660 CPU, 6GB of RAM, and an Android 9 operating system, the N8ii is a DAP that can easily cover many roles for active headfires. Its 4.4mm balanced output is capable of delivering up to 750 milliwatts into 32 ohms and 1200 milliwatts into 16 ohms. Unless you travel with the most demanding low-sensitivity headphones around, the N8ii will likely have you covered. During our filming of this preview, I've been using the N8ii as my primary portable system, and overall I've been pretty impressed with its sound and the responsiveness of its UI. I will make a quick note that due in part to its 147 by 77 by 25mm dimension and weighing in at a whopping 442 grams, the N8ii is a player that I find to be more transportable than truly portable. I can't consider this to be a pocket-friendly player, but it is small enough to fit easily in all of my more compact daily carry bags as I move around. Now for most of us, it's the sound that's king, and the N8ii delivers on sound in a big way. It offers both solid-state and tube timbre modes on both the single-ended and balanced outputs, thanks to doubling the number of Korg NuTube 6P1 vacuum tubes from the original N8. With tube timbre enabled, I found the N8ii to be on the slightly warm side, while the solid-state timbre gave me a more linear experience thanks to a touch less warmth and a small bump in detail retrieval. I didn't have any preconceptions about the N8ii before it arrived, and I have to admit that it took me by surprise in a pleasant way. It sounds great, has a quick and snappy UI, supports third-party streaming services like Apple Music and Tidal, is highly tweakable, has pretty much any connection you could need on the road, and, with much more to offer on top, I predict that it will be the endgame portable choice for a number of headfires. Stop by Music Tech's exhibit and give the Cayin N8ii a listen for yourself.
A friend of mine had been borrowing this pair of headphones and I missed it a whole lot while it was gone, but because I'm back to traveling again, I needed it back, as Abyss Diana headphones have been among my top over-ear choices for use when I travel, for use in my hotel desktop rigs, where it's usually driven by hard-driving portable digital audio players or something like the Chord Hugo 2 DAC amp. And this particular model, this particular Diana, is their latest, the Abyss Headphones Diana TC, and it's grown into my overall favorite of all Abyss headphones to date. The new Diana TC uses the same low-mass diaphragm technology found in their flagship AB1266 Phi TC, which makes it a lower mass diaphragm than those used in any previous Diana models. So for this driver, Abyss lowered the mass of both the diaphragm base material and the conductive traces. Abyss also better optimized the conductive trace pattern to the magnetic field, which increased the driven surface area of the diaphragm. Abyss also opened up the new Diana TC more, increasing the open area on the machined sides, which is intended to optimize acoustic impedance for the driver at any volume, so it's more open back than any previous Dianas. The most outwardly noticeable change with the Diana TC is with the ear pads. These Diana TC ear pads are a completely new design. They're made of a new soft foam internal structure with a pillow top to better adapt to the shape of your head. And the new lambskin covering has a very soft, supple feel, and it's now unperforated. With these new pads, the Diana TC's fit is closer to a more conventional headphone than previous Dianas. And with these new ear pads, I find getting a dependable seal over my ears is easier and the fit more consistent. Perhaps also contributing to the consistency is the fact that Abyss brought their ear pad manufacturing in-house, giving them greater control over quality and tolerances. Anyway, with these updates, all things considered, I actually prefer this to even the AB1266 Phi TC. While different, the Diana TC still sounds like a peer of that flagship, but it's more practical in form factor, and so it's definitely easier to travel with. As for its sound, the Diana TC is extremely resolving, almost ruthlessly so, but in a very good way. The bass is tight, fast, and extended, a refinement of any Dianas before it. It's very linear down low and among my favorite bass presentations among the non-bass emphasized flagship headphones I've heard. The mid-range and treble are also more polished, the Diana TC just overall being more together, more balanced than any of its predecessors. No doubt about it, the Diana TC is a can't-miss headphone at CanJam Chicago, as is the rest of Abyss's product lineup.
Bloom Audio will have an ample selection of gear at their CanJam Chicago exhibit this year. In addition to Elitech's line of cables, they'll have a wide variety of sources, full-size headphones, and in-ears to try. Speaking of in-ears, Bloom Audio will have two very special pieces at their exhibit, which have been the subject of much discussion on the forums. When you stop by and give them both a listen, you'll see why. This is the TheAudio Monarch Mark II. The Monarch Mark II is a tribrid design IEM with 9 drivers per side, 1 dynamic driver, 6 balanced armature drivers, and 2 of Sonion's electrostatic tweeters. It delivers a forward yet well-controlled low end, clear and textured mids, and the treble is tuned for an effortless yet detailed treble response, allowing the Mark II to present a smooth, relaxing experience for hours of fatigue-free listening. It's compatible with most sources thanks to its swappable terminations, which come in 2.5mm balanced, 3.5mm unbalanced, and 4.4mm balanced. Another incredible demo you'll find at Bloom Audio's exhibit is an in-ear first shown at CanJam Singapore just a couple months ago, the all-new Meza Audio Advar. Meza Audio says an Advar is akin to an amulet or talisman, something believed in ancient Romania to be an all-powerful boon for its holder, and what a boon for the ears it is. Straight away, the Advar greets me with a warm and pleasing signature, one which, to steal a phrase from a friend, is velvety smooth. There is a little shimmer in the upper registers, but it's modest, and that small touch of sparkle can often impart a sense of air and spaciousness to a song. Its bass is layered, and the bass presence is maintained at a level which should feel right at home for many headfires. Inside the Advar resides a 10.2mm single dynamic driver. This driver is housed within a solid stainless steel body that's produced via metal injection molding, with CNC finishing, and wrapped neatly in a high-gloss black chrome plating. All in all, the Advar is a continuation of what we've been seeing from Meza Audio in recent years. Wonderful attention to detail, superb dynamic voicing, and exquisite craftsmanship. At CanJam Chicago, you'll be able to experience both the TheAudio Monarch Mark II and Meza Audio Advar, 2 exceptional in-ears, in one place at Bloom Audio's exhibit.
Sennheiser will be at CanJam Chicago, and while I imagine they'll have plenty of things there to listen to, my top 2 suggestions to listen to at Sennheiser's exhibit are these in-ear monitors here, the Sennheiser IE-600 and the Sennheiser IE-900. It's not surprising at all to me that both of these latest Sennheiser IEMs have been immensely popular in our community and have really put Sennheiser squarely in discussions about top-flight IEMs at any price. Both are wonderfully engineered. Both are wonderful, period. The Sennheiser IE-600 and IE-900 use a single 7mm dynamic driver per side, what Sennheiser calls 7mm true response transducers. Now, prior to the world locking down, I actually visited Sennheiser to see how these drivers are made. I agreed not to divulge any details about what I saw there, but I can say this. It may have been one of the most advanced driver manufacturing lines I've ever seen, perhaps the most advanced. Audio tests and measurements were used during driver production in real time, in ways I'd never seen applied before and haven't seen since. It was awesome, and there simply aren't many companies in our space who can do what I saw being done there. Such high levels of investment, engineering, and automation. And it's not just in the driver manufacturing that such high levels of engineering are applied. Both the IE-600 and IE-900, and even the IE-300, use Sennheiser's latest evolution of resonators, which Sennheiser has also called absorbers, to sculpt the sound signatures of their IEMs, primarily in the treble area, to remove masking resonances. The IE-600 uses a 2-chamber resonator design, and the IE-900 uses a 3-chamber configuration. What's particularly interesting to me is how they configure these resonators to not obstruct the acoustic pathway, essentially as side volumes, Helmholtz resonators branching off the nozzle through small openings or slits. Now, given that the IE-600 and IE-900 have rather different signatures, I have a feeling one's preference for one or the other will be clear. I enjoy them both, but the IE-900 is, to me, the more resolving of the two, and it also has a default signature that is more like what I often EQ other IEMs to sound like. For many IEMs, I'll take a little energy out of the presence region, which for my tastes gives me a more natural-sounding tonal balance, one that's more speaker-like to my ears, and that seems to give me more of a sense of space, too. So when it comes to the IE-900, I rarely EQ it. Nevertheless, I think preferences are going to be split, maybe somewhere right down the middle, with some preferring the IE-600's default tonal balance. That said, I think most will find the IE-900 the more resolving of the two, regardless of which one's tonal balance is preferred. The IE-900 is one of the reference IEMs I carry with me pretty much everywhere I go since its launch. Anyway, at CanJam Chicago, you absolutely should stop by Sennheiser's exhibit to hear these fantastically engineered IEMs, as well as the rest of Sennheiser's product lineup.
2 months ago, at CanJam Singapore, Noble Audio astonished all of us by releasing not just 1 or 2, but 5 new models. It was easily the most comprehensive line refresh that I've seen in recent years, and all 5 models will now be making their US show debut at CanJam Chicago 2022. Beginning with Noble's new Falcon ANC, the active noise cancelling version of their popular Falcon True Wireless IEM. Next up is their new Jade, a quad BA and signal dynamic IEM offering us a warm and smooth signature that dramatically reduces listening fatigue. Then we have the Jade's polar opposite, the Cadence, an octuple BA design with a neutral bright signature featuring impressive detail, clarity, and precision. But surprisingly, it was Noble's new D12, a signal dynamic model that wound up being one of my favorites. It's quite possibly the very best W-signatured IEM that I've heard to date, with its richly detailed mid-range eclipsed only by its thunderous sub-bass and refined top end. And finally, we arrive at Noble's new Kublai-Khan, an amazing 4-way multi-driver IEM comprised of one bone-conducting tactile transducer for seismic sub-bass, one 10mm dynamic driver for rich and powerful mid-bass, 4 Knowles BA drivers for gorgeous mids and clear upper mids, and a piezoelectric super tweeter for delicate airy highs. On top of its superbly tuned frequency response, I was astounded by its effortless detail retrieval, exceptionally expansive staging, and exquisitely vivid imaging. Simply put, Noble's new Kublai-Khan is, to my ears, one of the very best IEMs that I've heard in quite some time. If you don't have time to audition Noble's entire lineup, make sure that their new Kublai-Khan is the one that you do hear at CanJam Chicago 2022.
Fir Audio is just one of the IEM brands you'll find at CanJam Chicago this year, and you'll be able to experience their latest line, the Frontier series, at Music Tech's exhibit. The Frontier series features many of the IEM technologies we've come to expect from Fir Audio, but the star of the series is no doubt the Kinetic Bass Bone Conduction System. Kinetic Bass is built around a 10mm dynamic driver that's both open and ported to transmit low-frequency sounds directly to the ear cartilage and surrounding area, which Fir Audio says results in a more immersive sound. The Frontier series comes in 3 distinct hybrid flavors: the 4-driver Neon 4, the 5-driver Krypton 5, and the 6-driver Xenon 6. Both the Neon 4 and the Krypton 5 have a housing made from an aluminum shell with a sapphire glass faceplate and come equipped with Fir Audio's swappable, practically minuscule Atom XS pressure relief modules. As the name may allude, the Neon 4 is a quad-driver IEM with 1 balanced armature driver each for the lows, mids, and highs, as well as the Kinetic Bass Bone Conduction driver. All in, Fir Audio says the Neon 4 will appeal to headfires who love smooth, creamy sounds. The Krypton 5 takes the Neon 4's driver arrangement and adds a second BA for the mid-range. Fir Audio describes the Krypton 5 as a technical performer with outstanding quality and clarity. And this is the flagship of the Frontier series, Fir Audio's Xenon 6. It shares the same sapphire crystal glass faceplates as its smaller siblings, but rather than machined aluminum, the Xenon 6's housing is constructed from stainless steel. Within that stainless chassis, you'll find the driver complement from the Krypton 5 has been boosted with the addition of a single electrostatic driver for the Xenon 6's ultra-high end. I spent some time getting to know the various Atom XS modules and their impact on the Xenon 6's sound, and as someone who tends to prefer leaner, more reference-like sound, I had a strong preference for one of the 3. Each module has an effect on the low end, and the module that reduced the overall bass presence was the clear winner to me. Now, those of you who consider yourselves bass heads will more than likely find yourselves gravitating towards the other modules for Xenon 6's default, or perhaps even its boosted bass curve. Regardless of which filter you're using, the Xenon 6 will offer a warm and smooth presentation on the whole. It's a vigorous, spirited sound, with the mid and upper registers trailing behind the low end in overall presence, but not overshadowed. It's a visceral experience that needs to be heard, so join me at Music Tech's exhibit, where I'm looking forward to trying out Fir Audio's Krypton 5, and audition the Xenon 6 along with the rest of Fir Audio's line for yourself. The unique melody Mason-fabled sound Les Jardins will be at CanJam Chicago, and you'll be able to find it at the Music Tech exhibit. The Les Jardins is Unique Melody's latest release, and it's the sibling to their limited edition Mason FS Red Halo. Like the Red Halo, the Les Jardins is outfitted with 12 balanced armature drivers, consisting of 4 bass, 4 mids, 2 mid-treble, and 2 treble drivers. In addition to the 12 BAs, Unique Melody included one of its in-house designed silver palladium alloy piezoelectric bone conduction drivers. Their bone conduction driver has 27 separate layers of ceramic coating, with each layer of ceramic measuring in between 23 to 25 micrometers. Unique Melody says that this improves the quality of the vibration effect of the bone conduction and makes their sound even more unique. To my ears, the Le Jardin is one of those IEMs that strikes a number of balances, and the end result is a natural but not neutral presentation. It doesn't try to be the last word in resolution and detail, and I never found it soft or lacking in clarity. Vocals are rich and vibrant without becoming thick or overly pronounced. I find the Le Jardin signature is one that plays especially well with tracks that feature female vocalists. For many of you, the Le Jardin's low end will be the standout star of the piece. The balanced armatures deliver tightly packed bass and lower mid detail, while the bone conduction driver fleshes out the body to give it a full sound. When you have a track that calls for slam and impact, it's present in spades. On tracks that demand a more deft approach, such as with many classical arrangements or soundtracks, the various layers come through almost effortlessly. If any of your test tracks include a variety of percussive instruments, I'd highly recommend starting with those tracks first to see just what the Le Jardin is capable of, thanks to the combination of its driver technologies. The Le Jardin comes with PW Audio's Meet Again cable, which is based off of PW Audio's top-of-the-line Orpheus copper cable. It also comes with an Italian vegetable tanned leather case. Perhaps its most striking feature is a natural cactus wood housing that's been mixed with red, purple, and blue resins in a final design that Unique Melody says was inspired by the iconic Impressionist artworks of Monet. I also want to make a quick note that while most Le Jardin owners will end up with the universal version, a small number of custom Le Jardins are available. Be sure to give the universal Le Jardin a demo at Music Tech's exhibit, and sample the rest of Unique Melody's lineup as well. One of the things I love most in this hobby of ours is finding regional gems. Over the past few years, I've been quite fortunate, able to travel around the globe to different events, and I've come across a number of headphones that we may not see much of here in the US, but nevertheless should not be overlooked if you ever find yourself with the opportunity to sample them. Luckily, some of these international IEMs will be at CanJam Chicago, like this piece from Oriolus. Oriolus is a brand that I first encountered while in Japan, riding on a bullet train of all places. Thankfully, you won't have to travel across the Pacific to try Oriolus' flagship, the Triley. The Triley is a 12-driver hybrid design with 2 balanced armature drivers for the lows, 6 balanced armatures for the mids, and 4 of Sonion's latest generation electrostatic drivers for the highs. It has what I hear as a warm balance signature with plenty of sub-bass impact. There's little doubt that this falls to the fun side of the spectrum. There's a sense of air and clarity that calls to detail levers and treble heads, but that's not what I consider to be the Triley's show-stopping party piece. That title belongs to its expansive sound, easily one of the larger sound stages I've come across in an IEM. Those of you shopping for a cost-no-object in-ear will want to make sure that the Oriolus Triley is near the top of your list. Another international arrival at CanJam Chicago is the recently unveiled Dita Perpetua. I had my first experience with the Perpetua earlier this year at CanJam Singapore, and I'm incredibly excited to see that so many of you will have the chance to try it here in the US. The Perpetua was the subject of considerable buzz during CanJam Singapore, and for good reason. The Perpetua is Dita's all-new flagship, and in a world of multi-BAs, hybrids, and tribrid designs, the Perpetua stakes its claim with a single 12mm PPTD dynamic driver housed within a 7-piece CNC machine titanium body. Dita says that this 12mm driver sits in an acoustic chamber of titanium specifically optimized for its size and function. The result is an organic, full sound with a low end that dynamic aficionados will likely crave. Its bass is among the best I've heard from a dynamic IEM, offering the layering and texture frequently associated with top dynamics without the bloat that can often hold them back. I find the Perpetua's top end on the smoother side, but with a far reach. It's easily forgiving with my more aggressive, sharp, sometimes piercing test tracks. The Perpetua's cable sports the second generation of Dita's Awesome Plug and comes with 2.5mm balanced, 3.5mm unbalanced, and 4.4mm balanced terminations. At the other end of the cable is a rather unique 2-pin connector designed specifically for the Perpetua's recessed sockets. Dita says that careful planning and testing went into the Perpetua's connectors, and it's compatible with a majority of aftermarket 2-pin cables. Both the Oriolus Triley and the Dita Perpetua will be available to demo at the Music Tech exhibit.
Wells Audio has been bringing out superlative, no-compromise, endgame personal audio gear since 2014. If you're not familiar with their offerings, that's perfectly understandable, because Jeff Wells, founder of Wells Audio, spends nearly all of his time designing and revising their products, leaving very little time for much else, including marketing. Not that he needs to, because over the years, customers' word of mouth has driven incredibly strong interest in their Milo headphone amplifier, their ever-evolving Head Trip series of headphone amplifiers, as well as their exceptional Cypher tube DAC. At CanJam Chicago 2022, you'll be able to audition several products from their current lineup. But more importantly, you'll be amongst the first in the world to hear 2 all-new prototypes. The first of which is their Head Trip 3 Level 2 headphone amplifier. Originally built upon the foundations of their Inamorata power amplifier for speaker-based systems and advanced through several revisions of their Head Trip and Head Trip 2 designs, Well's new Head Trip 3 Level 2 is the latest evolution of this extraordinarily powerful amplifier. What kind of power are we talking about here? Should you suddenly have a yearning to drive some modest speakers with it, the Head Trip 3 Level 2 will output up to 50 watts per channel into 8 ohms. And it seems that Well's timing couldn't be any better. With the popularity of high-performance but low-sensitivity headphones continuing to rise, owners of Hifiman's Sysvara, Original HE6, and HE6 SE V2 headphones continue their quest to discover amps that can reveal the limits to which those headphones can scale. But power without finesse isn't necessarily an improvement, which is also why the Head Trip 3 Level 2 has been meticulously constructed from the very best parts available: V-shaped resistors and bias potentiometers, MyFlex capacitors, and more. And the Head Trip 3 Level 2 now features an external power supply. You know what? There's simply not enough time to deep dive in everything here. Go audition Wells Audio's new Head Trip 3 Level 2 prototype at CanJam Chicago 2022 and hear for yourself. In addition to their much beloved headphone amplifiers, Wells Audio also designs and manufactures DACs, including their critically acclaimed Cypher Level 2 DAC, universally praised for its almost mythical soundstage. If you've ever lusted after a Cypher Level 2 DAC setup, but found this $13,000 price tag a bit too aspirational, then you'll definitely want to audition the second prototype that Wells Audio is bringing to CanJam Chicago. I tell you what it's called, but it doesn't even have a name yet. Currently, it's known simply as the $800 DAC. At 1/8 the price of its bigger brother, the $800 DAC won't have all the bells and whistles of its vaunted sibling. However, there is some familial inheritance in that it's also ESS based, and it even utilizes the same power supply as the Cypher DAC. And that's about all we know at the moment. To learn more, you'll simply have to come and experience it for yourself.
All of you electrostatic headphone enthusiasts watching this have to make sure not to miss the Exonic exhibit. Exonic is a new maker of high-end electrostatic amplifiers, and Exonic was a big hit at CanJam New York earlier this year where they made their debut. Now, while Exonic is a new company, it was founded and run by a man many of you electrostatic enthusiasts may already know, Kerry Giantianos, who on the forums goes by his first name, Kerry. Now, Kerry is known for his Kerry-built T2 amplifiers, which are based on the legendary, very extreme, and exceedingly rare electrostatic headphone amplifier from the mid-90s, the Stax SRM T2. And the Kerry-built version of the T2 already has a strong following among electrostatic aficionados. It's a miniaturization of the DIY T2 built using mostly surface mount devices, or SMD technology, and many modernized parts. Exonic does retain some of the original transistors that were key to making the T2s sound so legendary. Now, if you've dreamed of hearing the legendary T2, CanJam Chicago's your chance to do that. It's as close as most of us will ever get to hearing Stax's legendary T2. At CanJam, Exonic will also be showing another amp, a new design called the Exonic Eros. The Eros was designed to capture the spirit and most of the defining sound qualities of the T2 amplifier in a small and more economical amp. For example, whereas the Kerry-built T2 weighs around 45 pounds, the Eros weighs only 12 pounds. Again, Exonic was a big hit with these amps at CanJam New York, and it's without a doubt a can't-miss exhibit for electrostatic enthusiasts, or even just those who've been curious about what all the hubbub is when it comes to electrostatic headphones.
At CanJam Chicago 2022, CEntrance will be showing several powerful units. Powerful being the key word here, and hopefully they'll have a few surprises for us as well. To start, they'll be bringing their Hi-Fi Mate V2, a Swiss Army knife of a portable DAC amp outputting as much as 1.6 watts and featuring USB and Bluetooth inputs, multiple single-ended outputs, multiple balanced outputs, multiple gain settings, power settings, a bass boost, a treble boost, and more. I've been running the Hi-Fi Mate V2 through its paces here, and I find it to be excellent both in terms of versatility and sound quality. But there are times when even 1.6 watts is just not enough. Enter the ampersand. For those times when you'd want more power on tap, or more slam, or simply more headroom for peace of mind, CEntrance's ampersand portable headphone amplifier will astound you with just how much power can be had from a battery-powered portable amp. Capable of outputting up to 6 watts, or 3 watts per channel, the ampersand drove anything and everything I could throw at it, including flagships from Audeze, ZMF, Head, and more. And while I don't have a Susvara here, back at CanJam New York earlier this year, the ampersand drove Susvaras on the show floor to the satisfaction of many a headfire. But what's really exciting are the 2 new designs that CEntrance has been working on recently: a desktop DAC and a desktop amp, with the versatility of their portable siblings, but with the power and robustness only desktop components can deliver. However, both are only prototypes at this point, and unfinished prototypes at that. CEntrance is rushing to finish them in time for the show. Will they make it? Who knows? But let's take a look at what they'll be bringing if they do. This will be their DAC Mini 2, a new and updated version of their original DAC Mini desktop DAC that was first released nearly 7 years ago. It's designed to stack on top of, or sit next to, a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, and to look gorgeous doing so. And like the Hi-Fi Mate V2, it will also have a wealth of features including Bluetooth input, a bass boost, a treble boost, and more. It'll conveniently be powered via USB-C, thus avoiding bulky power cables as well as cheap and noisy wall warts. And next, we're truly hoping to hear a prototype of CEntrance's new Amp Mini, a desktop solid-state amp with an integrated but optional tube buffer for 2 unique sound profiles at the flip of a switch. But that's not what makes it special. Like the DAC Mini 2, it's also designed to look attractive with or without a Mac Mini or Mac Studio, and it's powered via USB-C as well. But that's not what makes it special either. In the course of designing the ampersand, CEntrance's founder Michael Goodman became slightly obsessed with conquering the sensitivity summit of hi-fi man Susvara. That quickly became one of the main design goals for the Amp Mini, which might help to explain its target output of 8 watts. Will CEntrance be able to complete their DAC Mini 2 and Amp Mini prototypes in time for CanJam Chicago? It's anybody's guess at this point, as we're down to the wire with less than a week to go. My fingers are crossed because I, and a few other headfires I can think of, would love to hear them at CanJam Chicago 2022.
This is the new Chord Electronics Mojo 2, and it's the successor to the immensely popular Chord Mojo that was released 7 years ago. And right now, given supply chain issues, this Mojo 2 may be worth its weight in gold. Are gold prices super high right now? Higher? Okay, this Chord Mojo 2 may be worth its weight in rhodium, as this model is nearly impossible to get at the moment. You will, however, be able to hear the Chord Electronics Mojo 2 at CanJam Chicago. And what Chord has packed into the Mojo 2, the improvements and the features versus the first generation Mojo, is a significantly long list of stuff. And some of these new features and improvements are, for me, and probably will be for a lot of you too, very significant. Let's start with some of the overall improvements with the Mojo 2, beginning with its DAC. There are nearly 41,000 taps now, 40 DSP cores, and a 104-bit custom DSP core, among many other improvements. They've also eliminated coupling capacitors, which they say contributes to greater neutrality with the Mojo 2 versus the first generation Mojo, and that's one of the first things I noticed about the Mojo 2, is that it sounds more resolving than its predecessor, the older model being more smoothed over, a bit more lush, but not as resolving as the new Mojo 2. Something else Chord Electronics added with the Mojo 2 is something I'm very excited about, and that's a super useful digital EQ or tone control thanks to the new DSP. With this EQ, there are 4 bands of adjustment: lower bass centered at 20 Hz, mid bass with a 125 Hz shelf, lower treble with a 3 kHz shelf, and high treble centered at 20 kHz. For each of the 4 bands, there is an adjustment range of 18 decibels. Now, this EQ functionality is very easy to access and use once you get used to it, and as someone who uses EQ regularly, this is a very big deal to me. The Mojo 2 also adds 3 different types of crossfeed, and I am also a crossfeed fan and have been for many years, so the addition of crossfeed is also a big deal for me. With this, the Mojo 2 joins the Chord Hugo family in providing crossfeed. Again, I love it. Now, with the weather warming up, I love sitting on the porch outside, working with this very setup you see here. This is an iPad Pro, feeding the Chord Electronics Mojo 2 with Roon, and driving whichever IEMs or headphones I feel like listening to. This is desktop rig sound quality from a portable system that fits in a small messenger bag, and that's just so outstanding. Oh, I should also mention the Chord Mojo 2 is compatible with the Chord Electronics Poly Streamer server if you want to take it wireless. Now, time will eventually remedy the sold-out status of the Mojo 2, but in the meantime, make sure to hear the Mojo 2 and the rest of Chord Electronics' product lineup at CanJam Chicago. Again, CanJam Chicago is happening June 18th and 19th at the Marriott Marquis Chicago in downtown Chicago. On your screen now is a list of all the exhibitors and brands at CanJam Chicago this year. It'll be so great to be back in Chicago with CanJam, and we can't wait to see you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in Chicago and on the forums at headfi.org.